after a stunning opening week of the 2016 Autumn International Series, which saw the All Blacks winning streak come to an end in spectacular style by the Irish in Chicago. Wales get outplayed by the Wallabies. Week 2 promises to be as thrilling, with England looking for their first win over the Springboks since 2006, and Scotland, who are looking to halt the Wallabies' Grand Slam quest in BetSafe's other featured match of the weekend. Joining me with his expert opinions and tips for Week 2 of the Autumn International Series is none other than three-time British Lion and record try scorer for Wales, Shane Williams. Shane, brilliant to have you back on this weekend, but not from the UK, from a sunny Bermuda, is it?
Yeah, I'm in Bermuda at the moment. It's far from sunny though. I think we're just about to experience a storm. But like I say, it's a cracking part of the world, and I'm very, very privileged and happy to be here.
Well, Shane, this is a wonderful time of the year for rugby fans, north and south of the equator. Of course, the Autumn International Series, which began last week, in quite stunning style in Chicago, of all places. The All Blacks versus Ireland, world record Rugby World Cup champions and world record holders in terms of consecutive victories, brought to an abrupt halt by a quite stunning result in the Irish. What did you make with that?
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the game. It just goes to show really that the All Blacks are human. I think they were beaten at their own game by a very good Irish side that were confident. They had plenty of support in Chicago. They certainly helped, and they were out physical, the All Blacks, and beat them at their own game. So, I think it's great for the sport as well. In fairness, the All Blacks are a fantastic side, and rightly so, hold a lot of the records. But sometimes it's good to see the underdog do well, and they certainly did put the All Blacks to the sword.
Well, of course, the All Blacks will have a chance to revenge that in Dublin next weekend, which we'll obviously be talking to you about closer to the time. But Week 2 promises to be as thrilling. Of course, England back in action under Eddie Jones. Miracle worker Eddie Jones since he's taken off. He'll be looking for his 10th consecutive win when they host South Africa, the Springboks at Twickenham, but not really quite the same South African side as we've come to expect in years past, Shane.
No, I think the English would be confident going into that fixture. Like I say, 10 games on the row. Eddie Jones seems to have put his magic touch on the team there. They're playing with a lot of confidence, playing with a free will, and really you see them beating South Africa. I don't think South Africa are perhaps the side or the strength and depth they have been in the past. However, never write them off. But I think England will be fully confident going into this game, having, absolutely turned the squad in the last 12 months to world beaters. So they'll be definitely confident that they're going to win this fixture.
And the announcement for the starting 15 was made earlier. Mike Brown, Marlon Yardy, Elliot Daly making a start there, Owen Farrell at 12, Johnny May being brought back in. We know his electric pace. George Ford at 10, Ben Youngs, Maka Vunipola, Dylan Hartley, Dan Cole, Joe Launchbury and Courtney Laws in the second row there. Chris Robshaw, Tom Wood and Billy Vunipola. Plenty of experience here. But, it's quite unbelievable what Eddie Jones has done with his team. Pretty much the same squad of players. And as you say, has turned them into world beating. What has he brought to this England side that was missing before?
I think he's just given them the free will. I think he's given them confidence. They're a completely different unit as far as confidence is concerned from the World Cup. They play with an expansive game now, but they've also got a lot of grunt up front. They're big lads, and like you say, sometimes you just need a couple of games under your belt where you're successful, and then momentum takes over. They're a very confident bunch at the moment, and I think Eddie Jones has had a free run at his players. He's gone and he's done it the way he wants to do it, and he's looked at the players he has around him, and he's played to their strengths. And I think the players in the Aviva Premiership at the moment, and the players he can select from, some of them are up there with the best in the world. So he's got a good array of players around him now that are playing with such confidence that they're a very dangerous unit. And he like you say, a lot of these players that were involved in the World Cup, and pretty much the same players that were there before he came along. But he's done wonders with them.
1-5, firm favourites, England with BetSafe. The box 7-2. If you're a Springbok fan and you fancy a little bit of a backlash, there's certainly a pride victory. Those odds look quite tasty, but let's really put things in perspective. South Africa loose forwards that are missing: Francois Lowe, Jaco Kriel, Marcel Coetzee, Sia Kolisi, Rudolf Smith, all injured, and Heinrich Besson and Skalk Burger. I mean, two fine players in their own right, not available. I mean, that just shows how many top players are missing. Peter Steph de Toy, the second row, looks like he's going to start on the flank with Loert de Jager coming alongside Etzebeth. Two tremendously physical players. But, I think you summed it up there. Eddie Jones has really got some real grunt in the front, so to speak. So the physical aspect could very well be nullified, as we've always seen this, the Springboks dominate in the past.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what Springboks have always relied on, haven't they, up front, and they've certainly got some big men behind the pack as well that have out physical teams. But I don't think England would be panicking about that at the moment. They are a very big physical unit. They got some big backs also that certainly know the way over the gain line. And I'm sure, despite even though it's 7-2 odds for South Africa, never write the South Africans off. I can tell you that. But England will be firm favourites and won't panic about the physical attributes that South Africa have at the moment, or don't have, due to injuries and players they can't select from.
Shane, a veteran of three Lions tours, leading try scorer, record try scorer for Wales, an absolute legend in your own right. You've played in the Northern Hemisphere on many and many occasions, of course. Let's talk about wet weather. If a rugby bettor is going to have a punt, and we have got some wet weather conditions which could be greeting Twickenham on Saturday afternoon, is that a real big leveller between the two teams?
It was a difficult one, really. Like you say, you've got two big physical teams there that have the ability to keep it tight and also play wide. I think probably the weather would have suited England at the moment, with the fact that we've had some poor weather of late. So they're used to training and playing in that. It may just benefit the English a little bit more. However, the South Africans aren't afraid to keep it tight and send their big lads around the corner and really try and get over the gain line and create points and opportunities that way. So, I think it'll suit England a bit more than they will South Africa, but, I don't think the South Africans will be too panicked about the fact it may be wet.
Shane, score prediction for this big clash at Twickenham?
I think the England are going to be too strong. I think South Africans are missing far too many players, and I think England have the attributes and the confidence now to put at least 20-25 points on the South Africans. So I'm going to say about 28 points to 12 to England.
Well, that certainly looks like, for me as well, as a South African, I can't see the box being turning over England at Twickenham. However, it's 7-2 of scratch, and you've been given a tempting 10.5 point start on the handicap at 11-13. That could be the way to go if you want to back the Springboks. Scotland versus Australia. The Wallabies chasing a Northern Hemisphere Grand Slam tour, if you wish to call it that. A really good performance last week against, of course, the Welsh, which was very disappointing. I had my money on your boys. Scotland 29-10, Australia 3-13. Of course, firm favourites, the Aussies. Yeah,
well, with the Aussies last week, I didn't see that performance coming. Really, they weren't the best team in the championship, and really starved Wales with the ball last week. And I think they would have to play the similar style of rugby against Scotland. Almost some of the performance last week for the Australian was the Australian of maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago. So I really see Australia beating Scotland. However, Scotland are a team that are evolving. They are getting stronger. They've got some great players in their squad. However, I just see Australia with the confidence now and just being a little bit too strong for the Scottish, especially behind the pack. I think they've got some great players as well that will take a lot of confidence from beating Wales in Cardiff.
And as you said, it's a Scottish team which has really developed some really great skills under Vern Cotter. But of course, they will have in the back of their mind barely a year ago in the quarterfinals of the World Cup that Bernard Foley penalty and a pretty bad call by South African ref Craig Jabber really to give that to the Aussies and effectively cost the Scots a place in the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, and that probably hasn't been forgotten either. That they'll use that as motivation for this game, surely. And again, like you say, that against a good Australia side last year, prove that they can push Australia all the way. So I think it's going to be a close game, but I do see Australia having the strength and depth to go away and win this game. However, this is probably the strongest Scotland squad I've seen for some time as well. So it's not going to be a pushover for the Aussies, and I think they know that. I think they do know that, and they're playing away from home. They'll be very careful of the Scottish side.
Well, if you're looking to back what Shane says about a Wallabies victory, here's a great market for you. It's worth backing the Wallabies at 4-5 to overturn a 9.5 deficit start on the handicap. So Australia all the way, I think, for both of us there. And then finally, let's turn our attention to Wales versus Argentina. I think for all Welsh fans, of course, a very, very disappointing performance and very unexpected as well. Where did it all go wrong for Wales last week, Shane?
Yeah, look, it was disappointing because, I looked at that Welsh squad, I looked at the players that were playing on that day, and I thought, they matched the Aussies player for player, and so just, to see the team perform like they did, completely starved of the ball the first half of the match, never really got into full swing, a lot of defensive errors by players that you'd expect to, that have been doing it for a long time, to defensively and be on top of their game. And the 30-point deficit or whatever it was really was justified by the Australians by a great performance, but just disappointing for Wales. And I think, especially the fact now that there's this transition where obviously Warren Gatland's involved with the Lions, and it's a big year for the home nations. A lot of players would be disappointed and would be wanting to put their hand up for a big performance this week, and they can't really play as bad as last week. That's my mindset anyway. So I'm hoping for a bigger performance, defensively stronger, and hopefully they've got a team that can put points on the board, and they didn't do that last week.
Rhys Webb, unfortunately, sidelines, but Gareth Davies, a more than capable replacement. But, I mean, really important for Wales. Back comes Jonathan Davies, Sam Warburton, Alwyn Jones, of course. I mean, three massive players for the Welsh team and vastly experienced.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, definitely the likes of Alan Wynne-Jones were missed last week. Perhaps Jamie Roberts didn't have his best game. And there was a couple of poor performances, and so yeah, there's a lot of caps being brought back into the team. Sam Warburton's there. He hasn't had his captaincy back, but he's fit and he's ready to go. Like Liam Williams, who was missed last week, I think, and Jonathan Davies, and I think it's going to make a difference. I think it will make a difference. A lot of experience there. Of course, it's not very nice when players don't perform and then they don't get selected the following week. But I like the fact that Rob Howley hasn't shied away from making changes, and he knows it's a huge game. Argentina are a very, very good side. Big win last week for them against an up-and-coming team. And not only are they a big physical side now, but they're a team that can score points and score tries. And I think there's some great players, some great talent behind that scrum and that line-out. So this is a huge game for Wales, and I fear for them because I'm a big fan of Argentina and the way they play at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear you say that, actually. I mean, Argentinian rugby in recent years is fantastic to watch for any mutual, of course. The last time they played in Cardiff was last year, the quarterfinals, when they put on that wonderful performance against the Irish in the quarterfinals. A really top side. Nicolas Sanchez at 10 is electric, a real magician as well, isn't he? I mean, he's going to be a key player for the Argentinians tomorrow and his form, if they are, I beg your pardon, on the weekend, if they are going to win.
Yeah, so Sanchez is a great player, and he's a player that's growing with every game. I think what the Argentinians have got now, apart from the fact that they are very big and physical and can get over that game line, that they got the likes of Sanchez and players like Cordero and Imhoff and these guys that enjoy playing with tempo. They enjoy throwing the ball nice and wide and using the players that they enjoy giving the ball to. And I think they're a completely different animal now. They've learned that you can't just try and bully teams this day and age. that you need to manipulate and move teams around. And I really enjoy the way that the Argentinians play, and I think they're losing confidence at the moment. They've had a couple of big scalps of late, and they've gone to Cardiff and they've beaten Wales before, so they're not, they're not inexperienced in that sense. So this is a big game for Wales, and I think it's really going to come down to the wire.
Shane, massive game at Cardiff as well. I mean, a place that was your rugby home, of course, for many, many years. Just give us a little bit of insight. Roof closed, one of the most passionate rugby crowds in the world, the Welsh. Few would argue with that. A massive game like this, I mean, how would it feel to walk out there with that roof closed, the noise and just everything going on around you? It must be spectacular.
Yeah, it is spectacular, and I think, especially after the disappointment of last week, the fans and the supporters are going to do everything they can, really make it very difficult for the Argentinians on the weekend and help our boys. And like you say, it's for me, I'm very biased, of course. It's the best stadium in the world. The noise is just kept in the stadium, especially when the roof is closed as well. You can't just hear yourself think at times, and that's great for the Welsh team and doesn't help the other teams sometimes. So it's going to be very hostile. However, the RGs love supporting their team. They love bringing their fans over, and they can be some of the noisiest fans in the world as well. So it's going to be a great experience, and the atmosphere is going to be fantastic. But I'm kind of hoping that the Welsh public can help our boys through.
Well, they start as firm favourites, Shane, with BetSafe at 5-11. But if you're looking for a punt with a bit of value, Argentina with a 5.5 start at 11-13 appears a little bit more tempting. Shane, fantastic to have you on all the way from Bermuda for your expert opinions on another big weekend of Autumn International Rugby. Thanks so much for joining BetSafe.